Hey everybody, and welcome back to Fantasyland. My name is Cole Altman, and we have the most special guest today on our show, a digital creator for Madden and a featured writer for FantasyPros. He's that guy that directs you in the right direction for your team. TJ Horgan, how you doing today, TJ?
Cole, appreciate it, man. I'm not that special. I'm in 10 leagues this year. Only made the playoffs in 6 of them, which is a down year for me. But nonetheless, I try to call it like I see it and give you guys the most help I can in the fantasy world.
Yeah, so today we're just kind of previewing the Thursday night football game, Chiefs-Chargers. We're seeing the matchup of the two young quarterbacks in this league that have really shocked us with their skills, Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes. What do you think, starting off with wide receivers, what do you think the fantasy impact? Do you think Tyreek Hill will bounce back from his inconsistency this week, or do you think he'll stay on his current path?
He has to. The first thing I look at is the over-under. That is the Vegas set point total. It's how many points Vegas expects to be scored tonight. And right now that number is at 54 total points. And the Chiefs are just a 3-point favorite. So Vegas, and 54 is very high for over-unders. So Vegas is projecting it to be a high-scoring, close game, otherwise known as a shootout. And if it's going to be a high-scoring, close game and a shootout, I mean, I will take the L if it's Byron Pringle who leads the Chiefs in receptions. I think Tyreek Hill's going to do just fine tonight.
What about Travis Kelce? I mean, we've seen other tight ends emerging recently, Mark Andrews, George Kittle with his back-to-back 30-point weeks. So do you think he bounces back into that top tight end spot, or do you think George Kittle and Mark Andrews, as it currently stands, are above him?
Yeah, that's a good question, Cole. And Kelce disappointed quite a few people last week. I know last week was the last week of the regular season for many fantasy leagues. And you know, having your first round pick give you 3.7 points or whatever he scored, that's difficult. So I'm sure a lot of people are disappointed. But hey, the bottom line is, if you have Travis Kelce on your roster, you're starting him every week that he's active. That's the bottom line. There are a few guys you do that with, you know, your first round picks, barring, you know, crazy circumstances, and Travis Kelce fits that mold. So you got to start Travis Kelce. And again, high over under. There's a very concentrated number of weapons for the Chiefs. So I would be confident in Travis Kelce.
So do you see any sneaky boom performances from the Chiefs tonight, or do you think it's just the big duo of Hill and Kelce tonight?
I do. Glad you asked, Cole. I actually, my favorite play on the Chiefs tonight is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the running back. I'm going to look up his snap counts real quick right here, but I know the Chargers have surrendered the second most rushing yards of any team in the NFL. So I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire, yeah. So that's why some people might be discounting him. I'm looking at the snap counts. 35 for Darrell Williams, 35 for Edwards-Helaire, 30 for Gore, and that's percentages last week. So Edwards-Helaire is in a 3-way split, which is not ideal, but I do think he's demonstrated that he is the most talented running back of that group. Whether it's yards per carry, whether it's red zone work, whether it's the receiving game, I'm sure Williams gives him some run for his money there. But I think Edwards-Helaire is the most talented running back, and this is his chance to get back on track. I mean, he started the season taking 75% of offensive snaps for the Chiefs. I think he has a chance to get back on track. Again, I'm starting Edwards-Helaire wherever I have him. The Chargers' run defense has not been fantastic this year, so hoping he has a big night.
Yeah, so honestly, do you think this, in general for both teams, do you see Austin Eckler having a good game, and do you think it's just going to be a run-heavy game for both teams in the first half?
Cole, that is the money question, man. I actually have, in my main league, I have Eckler and Edwards-Helaire.
Wow.
And man, it's stressful because Eckler, the news today was he's been limited in practice all week with an ankle injury. And the news today is he will play, but he will not have a normal workload. So I'm getting gray hair over here because it's like, does this mean he's going to, you know, he's not going to have a quote unquote normal work? This could mean one of two things. This could mean he plays and looks fine and feels fine during the game, so they give him basically a normal workload. They give him the red zone work. He has a fine game. The other alternative is that he pulls a David Johnson in 2019 in the game where David Johnson was active, quote unquote active, but he didn't take like a snap, and the backup got all the work. So he's not going to take his normal workload. Does that mean he's going to be active and only play 5 snaps? Man, I'm stressing. But again, it's Austin Eckler. You got to play him. You got to play him.
So you're keeping Austin Eckler a must start. Like, are you keeping him in the RB1 range, or are you downgrading him a little bit for this week due to the limited snap count?
That's a good question. Yeah, for sure you got to downgrade him. I haven't updated my rankings with Eckler right now, but yeah, Eckler in terms of my rankings is probably going to be in the RB2 range, just because you have to factor that they said he's not going to get a normal workload. So again, that could mean 5 snaps theoretically, which is frustrating because if you have Eckler, you are playing him when he's active.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a tough situation for a lot of fantasy owners this week because it's obviously the first week of fantasy playoffs for many leagues. Eckler, who probably wasn't your first round pick because they didn't know how good he was going to be going into the draft, but he's definitely your second or third round pick, and you expect your second or third round pick to have more than 5 snaps in your playoff weeks. You know what I mean?
Man, I know what you mean. It would be heartbreaking for these Eckler fantasy managers if something like that happened. It's a situation where you almost just wish he would sit out, because then you can pick up Joshua Kelly, you can pick up Larry Roundtree, you can figure it out. But instead you have to go into week 1 of the playoffs dealing with an enigma in your RB1 spot.
Yeah, for sure. So I think this is the question of the day for a lot of fantasy owners going into week 15. Patrick Mahomes has struggled 6 out of the past 7 weeks, hasn't put up more than 21 fantasy points in 6 out of the past 7 weeks. We saw a strong start to the season. We're just not seeing that the past handful of weeks. What do you think's going on there, and do you think he'll bounce back tonight?
Yeah, it's a great question because people have said, the narrative right now is defenses have figured out the Chiefs by playing 2 safeties high, the 2 high safety mechanism. And I don't know. I don't believe it. I don't buy it. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. And despite the lackluster for him fantasy finishes you just mentioned, he's still the QB5. Patrick Mahomes is a phenomenal talent, a phenomenal athlete. All of his weapons are healthy, and he's facing a Chargers defense that we've seen get absolutely torched by like Baker Mayfield. So again, not worried about Mahomes. It's another situation where you drafted him to start 16 of your 17 fantasy weeks, and you are starting Patrick Mahomes this week.
Well, do you think that goes the same for Justin Herbert? Because we see the Chiefs' defense has been really hot recently, but we've also seen Justin Herbert be really hot recently. We've seen Justin Herbert, he had some problems with consistency earlier in the season, but now we're kind of seeing that balance out with a 30-plus point week, a 20-point week, and now 2 25-point weeks in a row. So 4 good weeks in a row. Do you think he is still a must-start in 10 to 12-team leagues?
That's a good question, Cole, and I think so right now because of how thin the quarterback position is. You got Jalen Hurts dealing with an injury. I know many folks might have Herbert and Hurts. If you waited on quarterback this year, that's totally a plausible duo. Lamar Jackson dealing with the ankle injury. I think you're starting Herbert tonight with confidence. Again, it depends on who you have, but he's got to be top 6 quarterback this week in terms of rankings. And we did, speaking of being thin at quarterback, we got some breaking news too. Browns backup quarterback, Case Keenum, who's in line for the start because Baker Mayfield has COVID, also has COVID. So Nick Mullins will be the starter for Cleveland this week.
The Nick Mullins, the backup quarterback for the 49ers last year, correct?
Yes, sir. It's going to be a Nick Mullins game for Cleveland. You are absolutely right.
Wow, that's going to be exciting right there, seeing him. But, I mean, Herbert must start. Mahomes must start. Hill and Kelsey must start. Do you think that goes the same for Keenan Allen?
Totally. Absolutely. Keenan Allen is one of my favorite receivers in the NFL because of he is a consummate, wide receiver 1. He's the guy, like, he's almost like what Chris Godwin's aspiring to be, I feel like. That mold of just an incredible route runner, fantastic hands. I mean, Keenan Allen has it all. I could go on for days about Keenan Allen. But yeah, he is a must start. He is the alpha receiver there. Mike Williams is cool with the deep ball and stuff. I get it, but Keenan Allen is the alpha there. And again, an every week starter, no matter what, you have to feel good about rolling out Keenan Allen.
So, a couple last thoughts. We see Mike Williams, amazing start to the season. People were talking about him as a top 10 receiver the rest of the season. I bought him high, big mistake. He struggled a lot the last few weeks. And by the last few weeks, I mean the last 9 to 10 weeks. And so Mike Williams and Jalen Guyton, who we saw last week, have an amazing week on that long ball touchdown. Do we see Guyton having a good week, and do you see Mike Williams having an even better week?
Yeah, I'm not starting Jalen Guyton anywhere, especially with Keenan Allen back. That's one of those situations where if one of those guys is out, Allen or Williams, go ahead and start Guyton. I could be wrong. Again, I don't quote me on this, but I don't think Guyton plays much from the slot. So I don't, I'm not starting Guyton anywhere. But Allen, Williams, it depends on who you have. You mentioned Williams' hot start to the year. I think what we learned about Mike Williams is that he is who he's always been. Yes, this is going to be his best year statistically, but he's always been a good deep ball threat.
Yeah.
There hasn't, you got to scheme him up. You got to have a good quarterback, which is what the Chargers have this year. But we learned because of his low floors he's displayed, this is what Mike Williams is. He's a great deep ball threat, and he has emerged as the number 2 receiving option in Los Angeles, which I'm glad he did, because if he didn't, that would be saying something. When you're in a room, your other receiving options are like Jared Cook and Donald Parham. Yeah,
exactly. Just one final question real quick. That doesn't really relate to the game. Before we move on to just the game in general, where do you think guys like Justin Herbert and Austin Eckler land on the fantasy spectrum next year? Like top 5 QB, top 1 QB, and do you think Austin Eckler is top tier?
Oh, I love it. That's a great question, because this is something. Fantasy is a year-round thing. It's like it's my favorite game. Football is my favorite game in the world, and we can always be talking about where guys go. And I know so many people play dynasty leagues too, so it really is a year-round conversation piece. Eckler right now, assuming everyone's healthy going into next year, Eckler is my second pick. PPR leagues, I'm taking Eckler second. I'm taking Jonathan Taylor first, and I'm taking Austin Eckler second. So he's my second overall pick right now for next year. In Justin Herbert, I haven't done my quarterback rankings yet, but he's going to be up there. Would I take him over Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray and Josh Allen? Probably not. But I could see Justin Herbert widely being considered the QB5 after Mahomes, Allen, Murray, and Jackson. That totally makes sense. I mean, maybe Jalen Hurts would be up there, maybe Rodgers, depending on what team he ends up on. But yeah, no, I think Herbert is surely not in my top 4, though I think some people might disagree with me. I think some people might want Herbert in their top 4. But yeah, that's where I have Justin.
I'm surprised. Do you have Austin Eckler over Derrick Henry?
I do. Yeah, right now, you're playing not to lose in the first round. And I'm not, assuming Derrick Henry's healthy. We know what he can do, but the workload, and again, people are going to be like, they say this every year. Eckler's a little younger. Eckler has the receiving game. And the bottom line is Henry might have a couple 40-point games that Eckler won't have, maybe. But the bottom line is they both do the same work in the red zone. They're completely different players, right? Henry is this mammoth of a human, and Eckler's kind of a smaller guy, but they both have the same red zone involvement. So it's not like Henry is decisively better in the red zone. Give me Eckler with the receiving upside.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually, that you broke it down there. But just relating to the game, what's your prediction on the outcome, and why do you think that team wins?
Okay, all right. We'll go down with my prediction here. Let's, I think the Chiefs are the best team in the AFC for sure this year, and we can talk about that later if you want to debate that. But I think the Chiefs are the best team in the AFC. So I will say the Chiefs win Let's say 36-30 Chiefs.
I mean, I love that prediction because not only was my prediction 36-33, but I hope for a shootout because I have both Mahomes and Herbert going tonight. So
Are you in a 2 QB league?
I'm in a 3 QB league, actually.
What? How does that work, Cole?
I don't know, man. I don't know, but it's a 3 QB league. Next year, I'm pretty sure we're changing it to 2 QB and a 1 super flex. But yeah, Mahomes and Herbert going tonight. Big nights from both of them. But 36-30, who do you think has the biggest effect in that game?
Ooh, that's a good question. You know what? Give me, let's say Kelsey goes out with a bang. I'm going to say it's going to be a big, well, aside from the quarterbacks, I'm going to say it's going to be a big Travis Kelsey night.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going by Travis Kelsey is an elite tight end, and he had a down game last game. He probably wants the ball. I don't know. Maybe he's saying, Patrick, I'm going to run, throw me the ball. So I'm going to say my prediction is going to be Travis Kelsey catches 8 balls for 110 yards and a touchdown.
Wow, so 25 fantasy points in PPR formats. That's quite a prediction, TJ.
That's what I'll go with, Cole.
All right, TJ. It was such an honor to have you on today. EA Madden, sports writer. What I keep forgetting your title for FantasyPros, man. I mean,
you're good. No, featured writer for FantasyPros, but we don't need any of that nonsense anyway. I'm just here talking to my good friend Cole, and keep doing your thing, man. You're doing a great job.
All right, TJ. Thank you for coming on the podcast today, and we will see you next time on Fantasyland.